Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah,
It's appreciated.
It's great. Good to do it.
Everybody gets asked the same 3 questions.
Yep.
I'll start easy and we'll work our way up to hard.
Right, good.
If someone saw you walking down the streets of Salem, how would they know who you are?
How would they know who I am? Probably because somebody else said, "Hi, Mayor Driscoll."
Your reputation precedes you a little bit, though.
Hi,
People
Mayor
know you.
Driscoll.
You're out there.
Yeah, it can sometimes take a little while to get from point A to point B,
Yeah.
but usually it's because you're getting like good information or insights, or somebody sharing some story with you that you're glad to know about. So that's usually how people know. I think honestly, somebody sees somebody talking to me.
Yeah.
So.
There seems to be no lack of communication in Salem between its citizens and its elected officials.
We try not
Seems
to.
like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a super engaged community.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is people want to know. There's this thirst to know. It can be, interesting when we're taking on projects or programs, that there's so many people who want to know about it and have
Yeah.
opinions about it. Some of whom love it, some of whom hate it. Whatever it might be. Like, people are opinionated, but you'd much rather have it that way than people are just sort of not engaged and more or less apathetic about what's happening. So,
Sure.
but we're on social media. People call. That we get actual letters in the mail still.
Yeah.
And email obviously has changed the way folks communicate with all the different modes we have. It doesn't mean that we're not trying to communicate with people in the same traditional ways. We're just trying to meet folks where they are.
Yeah. And I see you out and about a lot. You're very visible in the public, so it's not like people just email a faceless entity and,
Definitely not.
Is that just because you're an out and about person, or is that a conscious effort on your part?
I think some of it's just because there's so much happening, right? So
Sure.
We have a lot going on, and I like to have a good time as much as the next person. So if I'm at, a festival or an event or an activity, or we have tons of public meetings, like there is this engagement piece where we don't usually, do anything or very little without there being some outward or external communication happening. And I'm at a lot of that, mostly by design. Like, I think I'm lucky to be in the position I'm in. So. And we're doing stuff, right? And so it's just, I think
And you
it's
had
part
kids
of the
too,
job.
so that's where I first started seeing you was like,
Right.
wow, with your kids, right? Like young
Yeah.
kids, so that
Yep.
got you out too, yeah.
When you're, a working parent, right? You're doing all the same things that other working parents are doing. So it's a great community in that regard.
How did you start out in the public sector? Did you go, how did that start for you?
For me, I started the way I think a lot of people get involved in their field. I was an intern. I was a
Yeah.
college intern in the planning department here. So I always say to our interns now, see, you never know, you could be mayor someday.
That's awesome.
But I was a student at Salem State and majoring in political science, and was fortunate enough to get a job in the planning department where, was low man on the totem pole, doing whatever needed to be done, but really loved the fact that you could make such a difference in the lives of the people who live here.
Sure.
And so that's why I got started and went into planning as a field, and then went to law school and became a municipal lawyer. So I've sort of been in city halls for a large part of my life.
How long have you been mayor?
This is my 14th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go almost as far, you kind of predate social media in terms of being
Definitely.
mayor, right?
I had a BlackBerry for a while, right?
Yeah,
I had a
yeah.
Razor phone, and so it definitely was something that was my first few years. There was no or very little interaction in that space.
So that back to the being out in the community, that interaction has changed. That level of interaction has changed dramatically too, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great when you can let people know right away, or so many people, because not everyone's on social media, but we do have a large social media community here, I would say, in Salem. So you can let folks know when there's a water break or an issue they need to
Right.
know about. They can also let you know when
Yeah.
they're unhappy about something. So there's a bit of a back and forth to it, but it's terrific to be able to communicate so rapidly,
And it's a blessing, but I guess it might be kind of a curse too. Like, it's hard to filter out the noise just as a private
Yeah.
citizen. Like, I can't imagine like you're getting
It's definitely
your friends on vacation, but you're also getting water main break on Bridge Street.
Right.
You know?
It's nonstop. I mean, I think some of that is just true, the nature of folks who are in local government in a position like mine, that you're never really off, even
Yeah.
if you're not here. But I will say, it's changed how we do things, having the ability to communicate with people and getting to hear from people right away. And you learn that just because someone's your friend on Facebook, they may not really be your friend.
I call them internet friends.
Yes,
we're internet friends.
We're virtual friends of
Yeah.
some sort, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's also great. Like I run into people all the time who know a lot about what's going on and really appreciate know a lot about me. They know more about me than I know about them because they might be following what's happening and the latest challenge or the latest new thing or whatever we're posting about, for sure.
So if you've been mayor for 14 years, you were at Salem State. So how long in total have you lived in Salem?
Yeah, so since 1986, that's when I came here.
Yeah.
So I'm still considered a carpetbagger, of course, but it's a great city. I can't imagine really living anywhere else.
Where did you come from?
So I was a Navy brat, and we lived all over. And born in Hawaii, lived in a lot of different places. I went to high school in Florida, so I actually came up here from Florida.
Okay. So when you got into, you went to Salem State and you got into local politics, and you pretty much stayed here ever since, for the most part.
Yeah, you know what? I was an intern, so I worked in City Hall in that regard. I worked in other cities. I went to work for the city of Beverly and the city of Chelsea when they came out of receivership. And so I was just living in Salem for a number of years, but not necessarily working here, but always loving Salem and feeling like we had these amazing opportunities, this great history. I was on the city council for a couple of terms in South Salem, representing Ward 5, where Councilor Turiel represents now. And eventually decided if I really wanted to make a difference here and influence what's happening, that you can do some of that from the council, but seeing what I was seeing, I thought I wanted to run for mayor. So I got off the council for a couple of years and then ran for mayor.
So having wandered all over the place and seen so much of the world, what was it about Salem that kind of locked in with you? Was there a thing or a couple things that you can
really
point
good
to?
question. Yeah, I think I would say I never felt like I had a hometown. Like my husband pretty much grew up, knows kids since kindergarten in the same place, right? And I never had that experience. I'm always intrigued by it. Like, you've known somebody since kindergarten? Like the same people? And I didn't have that. I definitely wanted that for my kids to have some place that they called a hometown. Moved around a lot. My mom's from Trinidad. My dad was in the Navy. So very much blended culture, family, and frequently being the new kid, you can size up a place. Like, does this feel comfortable? Is this going to work for me? Is this the type of place that I like the people that are here? And when I came to Salem State, it had a feeling of, first of all, like a change of seasons, a place that was on the same pace as you were. Like Florida's very laid back, great place to grow up, but it was sort of at a different pace than I was. And came here and I felt like the pace and the surroundings were there, but it's really about the people here. You feel so connected. Like you can move to Salem and, find your group or the group of people that, you have something in common with. And so I had work friends and I had college friends and I had like referee friends and like different groups of folks that knew each other tangentially, but there always felt like there was something going on that you had somewhat of an attachment to. And then you can't miss the history. Like it just hits you in the face, right? The buildings, the architecture, the streets you're walking on. So I always say like we punch out of our weight class as a city that has real city things going on, yet we can be a small town where you know your neighbors and you feel like you fit in. So I think it's about feeling like you fit in. And so
I want to rewind a little bit to a word that you used, carpetbagger, even though you've been here since 1986. I actually got called out, oddly enough, on the main page for Citizen Salem, not even Facebook, that I've been talking to too many new arrivals.
Oh my gosh.
Where half the people had been born and raised here, and I said, hey, look, here's the list of people who have lived here for most of their lives. What do you think, as a carpetbagger mayor?
Right.
What is that thing? What is that old Salem, new Salem thing that's happening right now?
I don't know if it's a reflection of like just what's happening nationally or not. And I challenge it a lot because I feel like I always say I wasn't fortunate enough to be born here, but I'm smart enough to choose to live here, right? It's good fortune if you were born here, but like to choose this place and really celebrate what it is, the history, the diversity, that feeling of connectedness that you have with the people who live here, I think is really special. And So my kids were born here. I hope they'll stay here and really appreciate it. But sometimes when you're born here, you don't always fully appreciate everything that's
Right.
before you. But I do challenge this idea, and it's been used sometimes by colleagues and other government officials, that we want to help our people, or this reference to our people coming first. And I don't really know what that means. Like, am I our people? I've been here since 1986.
Yeah.
Or are we going to be a place that is, neighbors who want other neighbors, right? And in support of lots of new people who moved here who make amazing contributions to our community. Like, you don't have to be born here to love Salem and really want to, help it be this place that's pretty special. So I hate this sort of old versus new. And frankly, I think there's more new people than old. Otherwise, I'm not sitting in my seat, right? I don't get elected, or the sorts of initiatives that we're promoting and promising. I think it's not about old versus new. It's just about quality of life.
Have you, in talking to other mayors locally or nationally, is that old versus new thing a specifically Salem thing? Because I think it's easy to blame it on the national,
Right.
the national politics now, but maybe that's a trigger point or something. But I feel like it's a very unique to Salem, or maybe the North Shore. People who live in Gloucester who have never crossed the bridge. Like,
we're provincial in New England,
totally,
right? So,
yeah.
it could be some of that. I mean, I think this stuff exists in varying degrees in different communities. Town gown, when you have like big universities and that are parts of communities, that happens.
Yeah.
Nouveau versus folks who've been here their whole life. So I think it happens in varying degrees. It may just be, there's some heightened sort of just civil discourse changes that we're seeing. And so sometimes it's not even about old versus new. It's just about how we treat each other as fellow human beings. And it happens to rear its head under, circumstances that look old versus new, I think. I think the civil discourse conversation is changed. Like, we are not as nice to each other or respectful to each other in public settings as we used to be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's social media, right? You don't really have to, what you might type in a keyboard would not be anything that you'd ever say in person, but somehow that wall, that barrier kind of makes it easier or okay, or just you hit send and it's out.
I mean, I lived in Vermont for a couple of years, and my experience there was similar, but on like a statewide level, where it was like, oh, you're new? Good luck. And it was just, and I met plenty of people who were, perfect. But the funny thing is I've been here for about a decade, and the funny thing for me is the old school Salem people are the ones that I want to talk to and like be friends with, know? So that's what I find so funny about it.
I find we're good to newcomers. Like, I don't find that, like, people get along here. So I think it rears its head when there are, we're fighting over something, or there's a disagreement, or there's just differences of opinions. I don't feel like we're a place that you can't get connected, speaking as the carpetbagger. But there are these, these areas of when we see it kind of rear its head on issues.
I did see a lady post on Facebook earlier that she had just moved here from JP, and I was like, nah, go back to JP. But
you did that, did you?
No, I didn't. I'm kidding.
JP Somerville, come on, really, right?
Yeah, totally. So what is it that you're doing, or maybe since you're kind of the big head of a large organization, but what you're doing to make Salem a better place on a personal level, but also on an administrative level?
Yeah. I think that we're trying to make sure that Salem has a really professional government. I think it's fair to say when I came into office, it felt a little bit like more of a old boys network, to use that term pejoratively. And
right back to the old Salem thing a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, but we see that everywhere. There's lots of places that, sort of have some institutionalized bad practices, and where politics can sometimes drive the agenda. We've really, really tried to professionalize operations here. Like, you get hired here based on qualifications, not who you know. People, open process for board and commission appointments. We have so many highly qualified people who live in Salem who want to give back. We want to take advantage of that. So I'd say we're trying to push through some of the way cities maybe used to be managed a long time ago, and really push forward with sort of a more professional approach. We try to be innovative. We try things, and some things we try fail, and some things we try work out great. But trying to create a culture where we're not afraid to try new things, we're really embracing that.
I think it goes back to the punching up out of our weight
Yeah,
class again,
right.
like punching up thing. Like there's so many things that are happening with this town of 35,000 that the city that I lived in prior to this, Richmond, Virginia, you would never try half the crap we're doing here.
I mean, we had 16-year-olds who were sea captains who went halfway around the world, right?
Yeah.
That grew up here. So the least we can do is try and be great, right? And
Yeah.
so, our hope is that we're delivering a local government that people feel like is responsive, is, thinking about the needs of today with an eye towards tomorrow, and always looking to continuously improve. Like, we don't solve crimes the way we did 14 years ago. We don't pick up trash the way we did 14 years ago. Like, how can we get better at what we're doing? And whether that's embracing pilots and innovation, some of which are going to fail, some of which aren't, or thinking about how we can be more efficient every day and trying to embed that in the culture, and recognizing that we're in this great city, so how do we keep up with this history?
Yeah.
So that's part of what we're
What
trying to
about
accomplish.
you when you just walk out the door? What do you look for? Like just little things that you do.
Sometimes it drives me crazy when I'm out the door. Half of the DPW staff know my route, because like, there's a pothole here. Can you trim that tree? Can you look at this? Right.
That's amazing.
So it does. Like you used to enjoy a snowstorm, no longer, right?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes you tend to think of all the things we haven't done, and sometimes not realize all the things we have. So there's a little bit of that goes with, okay, what are we seeing and how are we, like, if there's a piece of trash on the ground, I'm going to pick it up, right? This is this is our place, and you take ownership of that. I think most mayors do. They really see these issues, and that's why the job is so fulfilling, because you can do a lot to change issues. But when I walk out, I love Salem, and I think that it's a place that, because of its history, steeped in its history and the historic infrastructure that we have, it's also a place that I think is in change right now. We're really trying to think about how we can use public spaces better that we currently have, and think about how to get people here outside of a car. Like, this year's focus for us is housing, and how do we address the fact that there's so much congestion, not everywhere, but certainly in Salem, hard to get to but worth it, right? How do we create the space, and it'll be controversial at times because we're used to doing things a certain way, that allows us to get out of this car-centric mode in our community and provide some other alternatives. Some of that's the bike sharing, and the pilot for e-scooters, and wanting to take back some areas that currently are solely used for cars, to say how can we make this more public space for people, and
Right.
that might help us overall as a community.
I used to work at the Apple store in the North Shore Mall, and one of the running jokes there was somebody came all the way from Marblehead, which was 6 miles away, in their car with air-conditioned seats.
Right.
But a gentleman came up to the register at one point, and I was checking him out, and he looked dead across the table at me. He said, "I wish I could just blow up Salem." I looked back at him and I said, "My wife and children would not appreciate it."
We live there. Right?
So the congestion thing, like I drive for a living, like I appreciate
Yeah.
anything that can be done.
And it's like this realization maybe that, like, we're the traffic. Like, I'm the traffic. Me in my car, one person, as I'm
Yes.
looking around with everybody else with one, like, that's me. I'm the one contributing to this. So what can we do to make it easier so that I don't have to be that person? So we're looking at shuttles. We're looking at community car share initiatives. We really want to be a place that doesn't have to be so reliant. And our streets weren't built for it, right? So
Right,
how do we
right.
think about this?
I've been trying to ride my bike more, so.
Yay!
Doing
Yay
my
for
part.
you.
Doing
Yay
my
for
part.
You. Yay for you.
Mayor Driscoll, thank you for your time.
So glad to be on. I feel so special and honored. So thank
Good.
you. I'm
Thanks.
glad you're doing this too. It's cool.